If you could vanish from your current life, would you? In Japan, it's estimated that at least 100,000 men and women vanish every year, known as the Johatsu or the evaporated people. Reasons for disappearing include financial trouble, job loss, to domestic abuse. The Johatsu leave their current life without a trace, sometimes with help from underground companies known as night movers. These night movers assist with arranging transportation, new identities and accommodation. Finding an evaporated loved one can be extremely difficult. As it's been deemed a voluntary choice by the individual, police involvement is minimal, and using private investigators is expensive and difficult due to Japan's strict privacy laws. So it's very common for these people to disappear forever. The owner of a night moving service told a reporter from Time magazine that the price of the operation varies from 50,000 yen to 300,000 yen, depending on how many possessions somebody wants to flee with, where they want to go, and when the evaporation takes place. Here are 3 real-life stories. The salary man who couldn't face failure. A man in his 40s, once a successful Tokyo businessman, lost everything after his company went bankrupt. Unable to face his shame, he packed a small bag and walked away from his life. He paid a night mover to relocate him to a quiet, working-class district. His wife and his children assumed he'd died. Years later, he was spotted by a private investigator, but he refused to go home. The woman who fled an abusive marriage. A younger woman in her 30s, trapped in a violent marriage, found no legal recourse or family support, so she turned to a moving service, which helped her escape overnight and relocate to a distant location under a new name. Her husband never found her, and she eventually rebuilt her life. The student who disappeared over exam pressure. A university student, pressured by his family to excel, vanished just before a crucial exam. His family spent years searching, only to discover he'd been living in a small fishing village, working for cash under a new identity. He refused to return, saying he finally felt free from expectations. This Harry Houdini act started in the 60s, but became, how you would say, more popular in the 90s. The post-war Japan was a broken Japan, but in 30 years, they'd rebuilt both the economy and culture, until an economic crisis hitting in the early 90s, the old classic bursting of the stock market and housing bubble. This led to massive unemployment and debt, and while a portion of these disappearances were for safety, due to debt owed to criminals and crime syndicates, including the Yakuza, a portion of these disappearances was due to shame. The shame of being fired from their job, a sign of failure. Hiring a company to organise a disappearance for the rest of your life was deemed easier than a tough conversation, and there's a reason for that. In Japan, shame is deeply ingrained in social and professional life, often outweighing personal suffering. The country's collective culture values harmony, reputation, and duty, making failure, whether losing a job, facing debt, or experiencing personal disgrace, something to be concealed rather than confronted. Unlike in Western culture, where failure is sometimes seen as a learning experience, in Japan, it can lead to lifelong stigma, social isolation, and even rejection from family. Many who vanish do not just escape practical consequences, but erase the shame itself, believing that disappearing is preferable to burning their loved ones or enduring public humiliation. Many people who vanish reappear in a couple of months, but there are percentages that disappear forever. There's been footage taken of these individuals. They stated they miss their family immensely, sometimes keeping tabs on their loved ones from a distance. But while yearning to reconnect with them, the shame they felt for the initial reason for leaving was deemed too strong to overcome. Now, in this day and age, you think it would be easy to locate a missing persons. This isn't so easy in Japan. As it's been deemed a voluntary choice by the individual, police involvement is minimal. Japan also has very strict privacy laws. Banks will not offer information on accounts and transactions. One man could see that his missing son was using his bank account, but the bank would not offer further details on location or purchases. Access to security surveillance is also prohibited, leaving you with 2 options: walk around looking for them, or hire a private investigator to walk around and look for them. So, would you pack up everything to start a new life?